Question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Sir William Seal.
Mr. Speaker, the issue of alcohol is an issue that many throughout our communities are concerned with. It is an issue that local governments have to deal with on a regular basis. It's an issue that our police force spends significant amounts of time on. It's an issue also which prevails on our health system on a regular basis. And in communities such as Māngere, and no doubt there'll be many others throughout New Zealand, this is an issue that we have to consistently contend with in looking at trying to prevent the harms that it causes. So whilst on this particular bill we support it, and the Minister is correct, they are changes to the bill are minor and technical. The reality is the 2013 bill that this government passed did not include or address the issues that were raised in the Commission report by Jeffrey Palmer at the time. The Minister says the bill, sir, it basically addresses two things. It now provides for those drinks considered to be low alcohol under 1.5 to be included in this single spot to be in the supermarkets. That's the first change. The second one, sir, is now the clarity, but in many ways it just now expands the ability for any company to have an on-license and off-license to sell alcohol. And that is a concern for those of us who have to deal with the harms that are caused. Because on the one hand, we all know in this House that we've got to reduce the harm that alcohol causes in our community. But on the other hand, we're pandering and allowing for the proliferation and sale of alcohol in that particular clause. I want to refer, sir, to the Māngere Local Board and the Papatoetoe Otahu Local Board, who made a submission to the Select Committee. And the two, they did ask the committee to make some significant changes to Clause 4 and Clause 5. Clause 4, sir, in their submission was the ability to, if we're going to sell low or non-alcoholic beverage drinks that are sold as beer or wine in the area where alcoholic beverages are sold, we should then ensure that those same products are not then being sold outside that confined area. Because it seems to me, sir, and to our local boards, that this is an opening which allows for the proliferation again of ability for products to be sold where alcoholic beverages would normally not be sold. The second part that this submission raised, which still raises a concern for many, sir, is that when we allow companies, any companies, to be able to get a license on or off license, we don't know who the directors are of those particular companies. And if certain directors were involved in previous enterprises where that license was removed from them, that information ought to be made public so that those who are making the decision whether they ought to have a license on or off can determine with the full and complete information that's available to them. From our local boards who made the presentation to the committee, it just seemed that allowing for any company to have an off-or license without disclosure whether directors of those companies were involved in previous companies whose licenses were revoked does not provide full and complete information to the general public or to the committees that are determining whether they ought to get the license or not. Another aspect, sir, that I want to raise is that whilst the Labour Party supports the bill and because of its technical changes that are necessary, there are other areas which we included in our minority report that we would like to raise and will continue to raise with this government as areas of unfinished business. The first area, sir, is the lack of minimum pricing. It is clear that inexpensive, readily available alcohol is one of the key drivers of alcohol harm. Yet the government, in this opportunity, failed to address it. The international evidence is unambiguous. Price is one of the most effective policies to combat alcohol-related harm. We understand from the research and work that others in the communities do that the problem is those reduced price bottles of wine or the mixed drinks. We understand that there was an intention by the previous minister, not this minister, but a previous minister, that the target of his alcohol reforms would address the cheap alcohol. However, he's failed to do that during his time. And we think, sir, that the government's failure to stop retailers selling cheap alcohol at rock-bottom prices is standing in the way of genuine alcohol law reform. The second part, sir, which I want to again raise with this House, is the availability of alcohol. There is connection, evidence-based connection, well-researched, between accessibility and harm. And it doesn't need a rocket scientist to know the harm that alcohol causes, sir. One only needs to turn up on late Friday night or late Saturday night at the emergency centres of any of our hospitals, and you'll see the evidence there. And so I don't believe, sir, we don't believe that that is being addressed at all by the legislation. People purchasing alcohol late in the evening, we know are more likely have been drinking beforehand, may not have had the judgment and self-control required to make good decisions. And there's strong suggestions by many community groups who have to deal with the carnage on our streets that there should be a default closing hour. And they believe strongly that 11 a.m. the next morning is just the wrong hour. And we've got concerns by the inconsistency of trading hours. The advertising and sponsorship, 94% of the submitters to the Select Committee did say, sir, that this is an area that they ought to address. And so, whilst I've said, sir, this side of the House, in the face of it, the bill is very short, it is technical, it makes those two minor changes in terms of the of allowing companies to sell low alcohol or non-alcohol beverages together with other alcoholic beverages. It allows companies now, clarifies that companies, any company, can have a license on or off sales, and yet there are those particular issues that communities such as mine have to deal with. I just want to finally say, sir, as an attempt for local communities such as Māngere Otahu, such as Aotearoa Papatoetoe, an attempt to highlight that we're not doing enough, not just this government, but as a parliament as a whole, that we're not doing enough to address the harm that is alcohol related. These two local boards in particular have reviewed their existing bans throughout that community, and as of late last year, started to have publicised that there are now 38 areas where alcoholic or the consumption of alcohol have been banned from. Those areas, sir, were a direct result of input from police, from individuals, from community groups that are having to deal with the harm. And so I just want to relay that to the House. Whilst we're congratulating ourselves for passing this bill, minor technical changes, the reality is, sir, we've still got a long ways to go in addressing the harms that alcohol-related harms cause, not only to the individuals, but to our families, to our communities as a whole, and that there is a cost to that harm. That is a cost to that harm that eventually all of us have to pay for. And so I wouldn't be shouting at the rooftops to say that this is a wonderful bill. We support it because they're technical changes.
Sorry, your time has expired.